All right, welcome and thank you for joining us for the power of language to increase psychological flexibility and boost resilience. I'm Glenn Lubert, co-founder of Be Your Own Best Coach, where we bring you science-based programs and tools to boost your resilience and accelerate your career. I'll be guiding you through today's power-packed session with my colleague and fellow co-founder, Dr. Deborah Teplow. Hi, Deborah.
Hello, hello. And I want to welcome everybody also to this webinar. This is the second in our series on psychological flexibility, which is the foundation for resilience. And in the next year, we'll continue our deep dive so we cover all 6 elements of psychological flexibility. I want to mention that psychological flexibility has been studied for decades by leading researchers. And psychological flexibility is the core of ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, which is an evidence-based therapy, an evidence-based approach to helping people live fuller, richer, more meaningful lives, even in the context of difficulty and even when things are tough.
All right, so let's get started into the agenda. If you can remind you to mute yourself. I think that was set up, but sometimes that doesn't happen. All right. Yeah, and so everybody, as Deborah said, this is the first or second in our series. We have the video from the first of the series, and we'll have all the videos for the upcoming series. And so if you keep registered, you will be able to receive all the videos. So today we're going to do an introduction of psychological flexibility, just a short introduction, and then we're going to introduce you to unhooking from unhelpful thoughts, a little bit about that, and then we're going to dive into 3 exercises that you can use today to improve your psychological flexibility and boost your resilience. And then finally, we'll end with some Q&A. So let's get started.
Okay, so psychological flexibility is the foundation of resilience. It's the overall way you look at your life, the people and things around you, and the events that occur in your life. So your cognitive and emotional makeup, from thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, and feelings to your behavior, are shaped by your psychological flexibility or inflexibility. With psychological inflexibility, you're caught up in thoughts about the past, ruminating about negative thoughts or painful memories about the past that can't be changed, or worrying about the future, which has yet to happen. And the truth is, everyone has a harsh inner critic, and it's part of being human. We judge, we criticize ourselves. But with psychological inflexibility, you become fused with your critical self-description to such an extent that it seems as if you are that description.
Yeah, so just think about the things you tell yourself about yourself. Like, who hasn't caught themselves saying things like, I can't because I'm not good at that, or I'm not good enough, or why bother? I'll never be as good as they are. Or for me, it's sometimes as good as I was in the past. And then I get myself stuck, and then anyone gets themselves stuck in a self-defeating pattern of inaction.
Right. That shows your age, Glenn. I never was when I was good as I used to be. Okay. So psychological flexibility, on the other hand, is the ability to take committed action in the service of your chosen values, despite difficult or painful thoughts, feelings, or sensations that you might be experiencing. Psychological flexibility allows you to do 3 critical things. First, it allows you to be present, to engage fully in the here and now moment, focusing attention on the tasks at hand. It also allows you to be open, accepting yourself fully, your strengths, your skills, along with your very human flaws or imperfections. And it also means being open to experiencing the painful emotions or difficult thoughts that come into your mind. But instead of being consumed by them, you open up to the lessons they might be sharing with you. You look at your thoughts from a distance rather than being totally caught up in them. And then finally, psychological flexibility allows you to do what really matters for yourself, taking and sustaining action that aligns and serves your deeply held values, no matter what. You're connected to what counts, and you don't rely on external validation. You aren't driven by fear or fear of judgment. So, the first building block of psychological flexibility is acceptance. And we talked about that in our first webinar, and we're going to share that link with you. Building block number 2 that we're going to talk about today is diffusion. So this means noticing and unhooking yourself from those persistent thoughts and unworkable behavior patterns that reduce your ability to respond effectively in the face of adversity, which is what being resilient is all about.
So a simple example is the thoughts that you may have about public speaking. So in this case, people who fear public speaking get caught up in thoughts such as, I'm no good. Everyone will think I don't know what I'm talking about. I'll forget what I'm supposed to say. I'll embarrass myself, or I just can't do this.
Right, exactly. You can raise your virtual hand if you've ever been called on to talk in public and had any of those thoughts go through your head. That's the mind doing its thing. So difficult thoughts are as normal and common for human beings as breathing air. It's part of how the brain works. So today we're going to show you some ways to live with your thoughts so you can run the show rather than have the show run you.
So we're going to start with a little behavioral demonstration. I'm just going to drop this in the chat at the same time. What are some thoughts that you find yourself, you keep coming back up in your mind that hold you back, that make you feel discouraged or lousy about yourself or judgmental? What are some examples, Deborah, on that?
Well, the examples that you said, oh, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I'll make a fool of myself. Everyone will laugh at me. It's just too hard. We all have those kinds of thoughts that come up automatically. I'll never finish. I'm a loser, whatever they are. And so jot at least one of them down because we'll be using it in our exercises.
Just take a second to do that.
Yeah.
All right.
And then notice that these are only thoughts, again, as normal and common to humans as breathing air. So how do you diffuse or hook yourself when those thoughts keep coming back up? So it's simply not possible to control your thoughts. Not possible, but you can learn to live with them. So in this session, we're going to show you 3 kinds of techniques you can explore and then discover which is most effective for you. There's no right or wrong, and you may find some techniques work better for particular thoughts than for others. So we'll give you the exercises and then experiment with a mix of all 3 kinds of techniques rather than just rigidly stick to one kind.
Okay, so now take a look back at the thought you wrote down and think of them as pop-up banners on the internet. We have this cute little pop-up banner graphic. So you don't need to engage with the pop-up. Well, most of us ignore them now, but just don't engage with it if it's unhelpful. Just recognize that the unhelpful pop-up has shown up and move your attention to something that is more meaningful and helpful.
And I think this pop-up is really, oh, Glenn, I'm sorry. Can you go back just a sec? It's really, it's such a great metaphor because obviously you're on a computer. There are tons of pop-ups that pop up. You notice them and you don't click. You just move on. And that's exactly what this little exercise can help you do. Just observe, notice, move on. Okay, so this second is questioning yourself. So rather than blindly following what your mind says, you take a curious and non-judgmental approach to your thoughts. You see your mind as an organ in the body that simply produces thoughts that change by the moment, on the nanosecond, and they don't demand an action. So this is a really simple exercise. The questioning yourself is just asking yourself in a difficult moment, is this thought helpful to me? Does it really help me live the life I want to live? does it help me be the person that I want to be in this moment, in this situation?
So let's take an example. So if you really get hooked on a thought, like I can't do this piece of work, then you want to ask yourself, is this thought going to help me actually do the work? You also can add this exercise to the previous pop-up banner strategy and ask yourself, is this a button I really want to click? I like that. Is this a button I really want to click? If not, then ask, so what is going to help me in this moment right now? What is going to be more useful to me right now?
So, right now, refer back to that thought you wrote down just a few moments ago. And you could, and that you actually played with and putting it up on the pop up. And then take these 3 steps to question yourself and put questioning yourself into action. First, acknowledge the unhelpful thought. It's shown up. So you say, hey, thought, I see you. Then take a break, get some fresh air, take in a new sight, stretch, or simply take a big slow breath. And you can say to yourself, "Well, I know you're," or say to your thought, "I know you're there, thought. I know you're there right now. I'm just going to take a break. I'm going to take a big breath, and then take action. So do what's going to be more useful. You can again talk to your thought. You know, I notice that I'm thinking this task is too hard to do. I'm going to start doing it anyway." And that is a very powerful accepting, noticing, observing, questioning yourself, and then taking action in the service of your values is key to psychological flexibility. It's what psychological flexibility allows you to do, and it's key to resilience.
Deborah, I use this technique a lot when I'm running longer distance, where you're getting negative thoughts are coming into your brain. Oh, I can't do this. This is too long. I'm tired, and that really is useful to say, is this really helping me in this moment right now? No, then don't think of that thought. Think of just putting one foot in front of the other and just changing that thinking from any of the negative thoughts that are coming out. And I think that in running long distance is obviously an example of how you can use this technique and also build resilience.
Oh man, absolutely. And also, as an athletic person, doing those endurance activities really brings the power of the mind body and how they don't work together sometimes, and the power of the mind to want to take you off course because it's distressing, and you can just talk right back to it, notice it, and don't click the pop up. Just keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So, play with language is the third kind of strategy. There are a lot of techniques, but we're going to show you a really fun one. And the aim of diffusion, remember, it's creating distance and getting untangled from those thoughts and those unworkable behavior patterns. Diffusion means seeing your thoughts for what they are. It's just language your mind has produced, messages your mind is sending you, and it's not necessarily the whole truth or even a little bit true. So playing with different elements of language can be good and often fun, a way to defuse and disconnect yourself. So, how do you play with language? Well, here's one technique: singing your thoughts. Singing your thoughts to a well-known tune can take the power out of difficult thoughts. You can use any tune you're familiar with. A good place to start would be some tune that's very, very familiar, like Happy Birthday or Row Row Your Boat. And this sounds like a ridiculous technique. And I wanted to share with you a personal story of how powerful it is. Because, in fact, months ago, I was faced with a huge pile of dishes in the sink. And they've been sitting there at least a day. I so did not want to do them. And yet I knew I had to. And so instead of running away with, letting my thoughts run away, oh my God, it's too horrible, it's going to take me too long, blah, 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 I decided I'd take committed action. So I stood in front of the sink and I started singing. And this was pretty spontaneous. I've been studying these techniques for years and years. Hadn't ever done this so specifically. I started singing to myself, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. No, I don't. No, I don't. And I kept singing. Before long, the dishes were completely done. I cracked myself up because it was so ridiculous to be singing, and yet it worked. And not only that, in science we use the term durability of effect. How long did the impact of that exercise last? Well, in fact, it's lasted months. I don't go to the my I love to cook, I love to feed people, so my sink piles up with a lot of dishes, a lot. I have a lot of dishes to wash. And yet, and I haven't sung the song again, ever again. It's been months. But thinking about singing that song and the fun I had allows me to do the dishes every time. That's how powerful this technique can be. So we're going to invite you to do it.
All right. So yeah, we're gonna take a moment now to practice this. So think about some simple songs that are easy for you to sing, like the Row 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 Your Boat or Happy Birthday. Now, don't worry, we're not going to ask everyone to sing. And I just checked, everybody's still on mute, so that is good. So now keeping that tune in mind, and the challenge that the word you wrote down, the challenge you wrote down before, applying the words of your harsh, self-defeating thoughts to that tune. So everyone's muted, like I said. So play with this and practice this. No one will hear you, but you'll get to see how this playing with language strategy works. And the it feels ridiculous to everyone, but the ridiculousness is important because it allows for fun, and fun is the key part of this strategy to build resilience.
Yeah, fun is hugely important for your nervous system. It's only in the prerequisite for fun is to be feeling safe. Nobody feels safe, and nobody can have fun if you're not feeling safe. And so by starting to sing, it actually also can have a reciprocal effect and remind you that you are safe, and that you can engage in this. So yeah, so take a few moments to practice. Sing out loud. As Glenn said, you are on mute. No one's going to hear you. And the point is, discover how this works for you. Have a little fun.
I can't solve this. I can't solve this.
And be interesting to actually then add, yes, I can, yes, I can. That actually, I don't think that the researchers in ACT have explored that, but that was really be interesting. So we invite you, you can have a dialogue with your harsh inner critic and the thinking brain that knows you can do it.
Let's some people on the video. This is fun. All right. So do you think could someone want to share at least one person we can have a share for of how they use this strategy? You don't have to sing, but how did you use this strategy? You're welcome to sing if you want to, but
Hey, if I could sing, anyone can sing. Extra bonus if you share your singing.
does anybody want to, could anybody want to share? Just raise your virtual hand or unmute yourself. How did you use this strategy? All right, Pablo, thank you.
Yeah, I I was quite surprised that by externalizing these thoughts that are not they're not resourceful, I just saw their absurdity and they now became objects of my experience instead of me being wrapped up in them as the subject. So that was quite interesting to notice. And then I went on with like other thoughts that I feel are keeping me disempowered right now. And laughter just came at just realizing, wow, they're quite ridiculous and they're not serving any purpose other than amusing me through my own singing right now.
That is awesome. And that's amazing. And I really invite everybody to appreciate what Pablo said, that we struggle, we agonize so much with things that the mind just pops up. And it doesn't take a lot of work. It takes strategy, the right strategy, and being open, willing, accepting, open, and then taking action. And it can be very quick. So thank you, Pablo.
All right. Thank you, Pablo. I appreciate that. Always good to see you. All right, let's get to our last bit here and talk about our psychological flexibility self-assessment.
Okay, so observing and noticing, playing with language, they're just three strategies you can use to increase your psychological flexibility. And those help you, create distance between you and your automatic self-limiting thoughts. And I want to just memorialize what Pablo said. And I don't remember Pablo, but you expressed it so well. I'm going to adopt it. Thank you. And the big question for you right now is, how do you measure up? How psychologically flexible or inflexible are you?
So your next step is to take the psychological flexibility self-assessment. If you haven't done it already, this will help you see where you are at. And after that, if you take that assessment, you'll automatically receive a score and a description of what the results mean. And I'm going to drop the psychological flexibility link here in the chat. Let's I can bring up the chat. There we go. All right, so
And
now
sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm just gonna open up the Q&A then too, if anybody has any questions. But go ahead, Deborah.
Oh, I was just going to say that this assessment is an evidence-based, very well validated assessment. So people, I think, have found it really interesting to look at. And even just taking the assessment can plant some seeds of directions that you might take to increase that psychological flexibility and boost your resilience.
All right, so let's open up to any questions. Anybody have any questions they want to ask Dr. Deborah Teplow or myself? Go ahead, Pablo.
Deborah, I have this question that I'd love to get your point of view on. So for the last like maybe a week or so, I've been just fully accepting however I'm feeling in the moment. And I like become like an actor, and I allow the emotions to come in and the thoughts to come in, and I'm like playing the act of what I'm feeling. And then I ask myself, how am I feeling towards this part of me? And then like another set of thoughts and emotions will pop up in relation to that. And I keep asking that question over and over and over again. And eventually I reach this point where it doesn't matter what I'm feeling, everything's okay. And I'd love to hear what's your point of view on that.
Oh, thank you for that question. That is such a great question. And I think I'm going to answer it with something that people may feel like, whoa, really? I really encourage people to be open, to accept, to be willing to experience those feelings they're feeling, and to do exactly as you did, to play with them. Sounds awesome. And then to say, thank you, feelings. Now let me get back to work. Because we can't control our feelings. Our feelings are automatic responses to whatever stimulus is hitting us. It comes up in our, it can come up in our minds. But what counts is, what are your values? What really counts for you? Who do you want to be for yourself, for people who you're close to, for the world? How do you want to be seen in the world? And we do it through action. And so actually don't focus on feelings in like, oh, I feel X, so therefore Y. No, it's what are my values and how do I want to live my life so those values are, I express those values through my actions. And I love hearing what you're doing. I mean, if everybody could do that, it'd be awesome, because you diffuse, you kind of defang the hold of those feelings so much. So many of us mistake our feelings for truth. We're not angry. We feel angry, or we notice ourselves being angry, but we don't have to take an angry action. We could say, no, I am a person who can be diplomatic and tactful, and therefore I'm not going to use the F-bomb on this person who just cut in front of me. I'm also going to think, well, maybe they have an emergency at a hospital and they're running to say their last goodbyes to their loved one. We don't know. So we don't act on feelings. We take action in the service of our values. It might be a long answer. How's that for you, Pablo?
In my experience, if I keep peeling back the layers of the onion, these intrinsic values pop up that I don't have to like bring them from any set of beliefs. They're just like these core anchored experiences such as compassion or creativity or calm. And I'm not telling myself, oh, I'm going to be calm. Calm just emerges the more I peel back the layers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Pablo. We're about out of time. We just have one last question. What's one thing you heard yourself think or say during this session? It's one thing you heard yourself think or say during the session. Drop it in the chat. And I want to know too about the values piece. So when you do the psychological flexibility self-assessment, you'll get a link to our resilience building engineering resilience journal, and in it it has some questions about your values. Every time you enter it in the journal, there's a list of values that you can check off. And I've done the journal for many weeks, and I really like doing that at the end of the day, because there's a whole list of values on there. And as I go through those, and this is, how did I live in service of my values today? And I can go down the checklist of values of things I didn't even think about, but I'm like, oh yes, I had integrity. I shared wisdom. I had some good well-being for myself. And as you go through those things and you enter those, I'm like, I feel so much better about the day that I had, because I could see all the different ways I lived in service of my values. And that honestly helps me sleep better at night too, as well.
Yeah.
So what's one thing you heard yourself think or say? I'm blend to befriend. Thank you.
Right.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Yes.
That's actually funny. I thought I have. I thought I had.
Love that. That's so true. I can do
That
this.
is so true. I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do it along with my 13-year-old daughter.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, as we wrap up, you'll be getting a follow-up email. It's going to have a link again to the psychological flexibility self-assessment for you. And also you'll get a email with the link to this recording, the previous recording in the series, and you'll obviously get notification when we have our next session. I want to thank you everybody for your time. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
And have a great rest of your day.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.